trade for Mike. He was an asset that we got 4 great years out of. But when you are talking about making a contract the kind that he got and for the future, that's quite a commitment. And none of that counts about what he did those first 4 years. It all goes against what he can do for you in the future. And you've got to really weigh how many players. And I'm just going to give you this. Not only do we immediately get a player, but those draft picks could get us, I'm talking top Pro Bowl type players, could. Not necessarily, you're going to be quick to say, you won't necessarily get those players. You got to draft them or acquire them. What I say is we not only gives us 4 first-round picks over the next 2 years, we not only do that, nothing says we can't use some of those picks right now to go get somebody right now. Don't rule that out.
The Dallas Cowboys entered their bye at 3-5-1, coming off a heartbreaking loss to the Arizona Cardinals, and that game is really a culmination of what's been happening so far in the season. The offense started fast and then cool off just like in the season, and of course the biggest storyline is the defense being the biggest disappointment this entire season. The defense is showing that they're literally still having identity issues as they are, as we know, going through their 3rd coordinator in 3 years. And of course, it looks like they're going through the missing of the lingering shadow of the trade that happened this offseason of the star Micah Parsons, which sent him to Green Bay. But there's a twist, man. This story might be starting to turn around for the better. Finally, Dallas is starting to rebuild themselves from those shadows. And recently, of the pieces that were added, now we finally have something to look forward to. Through 9 weeks, the Cowboys' defense is ranked 31st in total yards, giving up 395.4 yards per game. They're 30th in scoring defense, allowing 28.7, near the bottom of the league in run defense, giving up 149.2 yards a game on 4.9 yards per carry. 5 yards per carry is utterly ridiculous. The passing defense is a far cry away from what it was in the 12-5 seasons, ranking at 22nd in the league. And of course, they are dead last in the league's per drop back rate. These aren't just numbers. They are little bits and pieces of a bigger problem of how this defense lost its heartbeat. The main issue I have been saying over and over again of what's wrong with this defense is that it's starved with playmakers. And the problem is we've given big contracts out, contracts to Deron Bland, contracts to Osa Odighizuwa. These contracts came with expectations saying that these players will become some of our foundational pieces for the future. But of course, both of them have regressed. Osa Odighizuwa's win rate versus double teams has dropped from 15% all the way almost half to 8%. Bland's passer rating allowed ballooned from 68 to 116. Not to mention the situation with Diggs and the lingering issues and him being on IR and the inconsistent personnel changes. This all has led to Dallas becoming predictable. And of course, the absence of Micah, which people would never ever, some will never admit, but that chaos chess piece that we lost really affected this team. Now teams are not forced to play you with their left hand. Now you don't tilt protections your way. Now you don't dictate tempo. Now you don't make the quarterback uncomfortable and speeding up his clock. Micah was more than just an edge rusher. He was a chess piece. Without his quick pressure and constant pressure, your secondary felt it. Bland felt it. Now he can't play in his home mindset where he likes to jump routes and sometimes play out of phase. He affected the order of thinking of opposing offensive lines. Instead of identifying the mic, they are communicating to where Parsons lined up, and they'll dictate their protections off that. Without him, our defense has become very static. Now offenses don't fear you anymore, and they can call their protections with confidence, and really think they can beat you just blocking with less. And this is where you saw your current players and players that were supposed to be paid to fill in that void of scheming up the pressure where they failed. And this problem was becoming more and more evident, thus bringing the ideas that the answer does not lie within, but external. And then came the trade deadline. The Cowboys finally cashed in on the Micah Parsons trade, where they received multiple first-round picks, but not letting those picks turn into just rookies, going and cashing in on impact players that can help you now. I am so proud of them for making this move. The Cowboys acquired Quinnen Williams, the all-pro defensive tackle from the New York Jets. And on the same day, they also added in, we cannot forget, linebacker from the Cincinnati Bengals and Logan Wilson. These two additions, and of course, mainly the Quinnen Williams additions, are huge because you finally got a player that opposing teams have to respect. That is a force multiplier within the rest of your defense. And not to mention, the best part about it, what makes this even sweeter, is that we also getting reinforcements back from injury. We can't forget Savon Ravel, the rookie from Eastern Carolina, is set to make his debut the very next week after the bye. DeMarvion Overshown, the linebacker you had that was literally, before he got injured, on the cusp of stardom. And then we're getting more depth pieces like Josh Butler. And also potentially, where I want the front office, this is where you can really bring this in and let us make a run this year. We can potentially get back Trayvon Diggs. When you take a look at all of these additions, plus the trades, that is literally almost half the defense we're going to be overhauling. That is a brand new defense. So from a schematical standpoint, why is this, important? Listen, the Cowboys, I've already talked about, a lot of players have talked about how we shifted from a four-man front traditionally to a five-man front. I initially saw this in the Carolina game at the end, and I knew they did it as a desperation, as a last resort, to help limit what was happening to them on the ground game as Rico rushed for 200 yards versus us. It's also called a 4-3 under, but it's still our 4-3 look. Under means we're putting the one tech towards the strength of the offense. So the tight ends on the left side, we're putting the one tech over there, but we're also having a Sam linebacker who is most likely going to be Samaris Luafau on the line of scrimmage. And what is the purpose of this is to break up initial double teams. You see, as a former offensive lineman, we have this thing as a panic call when we see at least a lot of men on the line of scrimmage, or if the center and the two guards are covered, we have what I used to call a bear look. We're big on big, which means we're a man ducked across the board. So where we struggle initially with our, with Osa being double teamed at an alarming rate and him not winning those double teams, that helped alleviate and try to, force the issue. You see how Quinnen Williams affects all of this. He may not be the same queen piece as Micah, but he can be what I like to call the Queen's Gambit. See, the Queen's Gambit is an opening move in chess. It's basically to have a early and aggressive move to control the middle of the board. And that's what we're trying to do with Quinnen Williams. You see, Quinnen Williams is a gravity well. He himself demands double teams. He's going to raise the floor of everyone else on his defense. You see, what Osa historically did not do well winning versus double teams, this is what Quinnen Williams does at a very, very efficient rate. And this effect, getting two on you, is just like in basketball. See, most people don't believe it's like Stephen Curry, man. Most people think Stephen Curry's greatest superpower is shooting. No, his greatest ability actually is the off-ball movement, because he can command eyes. And that's what we're trying to do and trying to replicate what we lost with 11, is trying to occupy more than one set of eyes, having that nuclear player effect. Him alongside with Kenny Clark, who also gives you strength. This is going to boost the win rate we have on the initial point of attack. And not to mention, he fits White Cotton in that shooting up the field and gap mentality. Now we have somebody who can do this at a all-pro level. Insert Logan Wilson, because we can't forget his impact and what he means. Well, the linebacker room already was just discombobulated. A lot of times it was communication and we weren't lined up. With Logan Wilson, you get a tone-setting communicator and someone with sideline to sideline range. It's not perfect, but I'm saying put that alongside with Quinnen Williams, who will be shooting the gap. This is probably the best front that Logan Wilson has ever played with in his entire career. This, not to mention, like, Logan was only benched, because of the youth movement that they were trying to do in Cincinnati. But he's going to stabilize his room with Kenneth Murray, who struggles with overprocessing, or Shamar James, who is just a rookie and learning. And possibly he can help unlock Murray's lower file, okay? And when Overshown returns, being alongside with him, this linebacker room, let's see it take a jump. Let's say that this entire front seven should be something different from what we've seen going into the bye. And I believe this is going to also help us in the passing defense as well. And of course, there's going to be a ripple effect to your secondary with the internal clock. Bland can play in a forward position again. Hopefully we can get Diggs and Ravel back, bump him back into nickel. Ravel as the body type that can press. Hopefully Eberflus keeps that aggressive mindset where we can still be aggressive at the line of scrimmage and bring pressure, especially with a Quinnen Williams, when he's occupying guys. We should not go back to that lax look, okay? And especially if Diggs return, now we have man press corners all across the board. Quinnen Williams allows interior pressure, which is actually more dangerous in my opinion than the edge pressure, because that's the direct counter to the dual threat quarterback. And if you look at the league, it's full of dual threat quarterbacks. And that goes into my next point. None of this works until Eberflus absolutely changes. Even though I don't agree with him still being here, it's on him. I know rushing forward is his identity, but you need to view that as a changeup now, because now you have Quinnen Williams and you saw a little bit of success with you rushing more. Keep the 5 down front. You can still go into that 4 down front, but I still want you to be in an aggressive mindset with your team. Imagine what you were doing last week of blitzing and sending all out with the Quinnen Williams now. Like, that's going to cause havoc in the middle and make your back end look better than what it is. I pray that he does not go back to the passive zone and just sitting back in the bend but don't break scheme because now he has talent. No, you need to stay evolved, man, and mend this, package, or mend this defense to what your scheme really is, man. We're trying to do something. Sure, making the playoffs is a long shot, but we cannot afford for you to revert back. And with you finally getting control back of the defense, now Schottenheimer can go back to focusing on the offense, because I believe the offense regressed at the end of this, up until the bye, is because there were already reports, and he said it himself, where Shotty basically had to babysit and sit in the meetings for the defense. And along this time, it's not a coincidence where we saw the offense take a step back. We saw more penalties happen. We saw less execution. We saw play calling mishaps more than ever. Sure, blame the opponent, but I just say it's a major coincidence. So all in all, I think, and this can help us get on a run, this move that we made at the deadline with Quinnen Williams, we are no longer going to be a bottom 30 team. I feel like we're going to climb up into the low 20s or even the mid post the bye. I just feel like Quinnen Williams, being a run stopper he is and being a multiplier he is, we're going to improve our EPA. We're going to improve our pressure rate. We're going to improve, explosive plays, allowed, like dial that down. Red zone TD percentage, turnovers, you know what I'm saying? We're going to improve all these things. And I feel like it all stands point from this bye that's going to be crucial, and I'm very excited to see what they're going to do in this upcoming Raiders game in week 11. So kudos to the front office. You don't replace Micah Parsons. You rebuild the force multiplier that he did in layers. Quinnen Williams gives you that gravity. Wilson gives you control. You have the personnel to be still aggressive and to be instant grits. Aggressive calls can stitch it all together. All in all, this is how you make your fan base move on and forget the presence of Micah. It's not by myth, but by math and matchups. This is the first time I'm actually happy that we made moves to forget what we had in the past. Now, it still has to play out on Sunday, but for once, post-bye, Dallas isn't selling hope. They're for real and actually trying to build a defense. From a 3-5-1 team and a Cardinals heartbreak to a different team out of the bye. This is how you move past the 11 era. Not by forgetting it, but by finally engineering a new identity. That's been my time, Cowboy Nation. Make sure to like, subscribe to the video, comment down below. How do you feel? Are you excited? Hype the video. Until next time. Peace.